I just turned the tender age of 35, and I'd like to share 5 lessons with you that I've learned as I've reached my mid-30s. I cannot even believe I'm saying I am in my mid-30s, but I am, and I am proud of it. Now, if you're younger and watching this, then you're actually going to be ahead of the game. Because all of these things I really, really, really wish I had learned much earlier on. It would have really helped me in life. So if you're younger, don't switch off just because I said mid-30s. This is for you too. Lesson 1. You will not change someone. Let me say it louder for the people in the back. You are not going to change someone. Whoever that statement just had you thinking of a specific name in your head, that person, you're not going to change them. Boy, the amount of time, energy, money, and everything else I would have saved if I had really understood this lesson much earlier on. It is not your job, nor is it in your capability to change anyone, okay? This means that person, that friends, that colleague, that boy or girl that you like, and you've seen some questionable red flags, you are not going to be able to change those problematic character flaws that they have. As much as you want to, it's not going to happen. A true change of heart, change of character, change of habits can only happen when the person in question decides that they need to change. It can only be a decision that they make. You cannot make that decision for them. Can you be a positive influence on their life? Absolutely, and so you should. You know, I've been around people that have made me want to be a better person. And in turn, I changed things about myself that were highlighted from being around them because I saw something in someone else that I wanted to emulate. But if you are wishing on a prayer that that guy you're with is going to magically change overnight, then I'm really sorry to break this to you, but it's very likely not going to happen. I've seen many women stick around waiting for their man to change. And most of the time, I'm not saying 100% of the time, but a very, very large majority of those guys don't ever change. Do not waste your time like that. I have seen so many people waste precious years in their life when they're younger, waiting on someone else. Also, I would like to put it to you that perhaps the guy or girl in question who you are praying that they change, maybe they're not changing because you sticking around is actually passive validation to them that they actually don't need to change. Here's what I do in a situation like this. Now, this particular one might not land with everyone, but honestly, I pray for them. I pray that they would fully realize their potential and that they would grasp all that they have to offer in life. I honestly just pray for the best for them. If you're not a praying person, and that's fine, like I said, we might not always agree, but if you're not like that, then something practical that I do is I encourage them, especially, when I'm around and they've done something really positive or really good. I encourage them with that kind of behavior. It's positive reinforcement, and that is something practical that anyone can do. Also, as a side note, don't excuse certain behaviors. When people think they can get away with things, they keep on doing it. If you're constantly excusing it and saying, oh, it's fine, or I'm fine that you did that to me, that's not okay. And honestly, you're not doing them any favors by trying to excuse it and brushing it under the carpet and not addressing the fact that what they're doing is not right or it's hurting you. So do not excuse certain behaviors because that becomes, again, validation. I find this particularly hard because I feel like I'm automatically programmed to go, oh, it's fine, or I'm fine. And it's not. And sometimes I'm like, Tori, stop saying it's fine. It's not fine. If you're someone that finds that hard as well, you are not alone. I'm right there with you. We can do this. Lesson 2. If you are a giver, know your limits. What do you mean by that, Tori? The last 34 years, okay, that's an exaggeration, especially because I'm 35 now. But for many years, I prided myself as being someone who likes to do things for others. I like to give my time, my money, my things, whatever I can do to help someone I love to do it. However virtuous that is, do not make yourself into a self-proclaimed martyr by giving everything and anything in order to help someone else. Because what happens is you end up not taking care of yourself, which is wrong, just plain wrong. And you have to know your limits. Now, this is something that I used to struggle with a lot in my 20s, is that I thought I had to give everything to everyone. And it doesn't matter what Tori needed as long as someone else got what they needed. I have wrestled with this for years, and I found out the hard way that it is not healthy and it is certainly not right to give so much of yourself that you end up actually neglecting yourself and not taking care of you. And that can lead to health issues, mental issues, and you can also have an unhealthy expectation from other people as to what you think they should be giving to you because you're actually not giving it to you. Don't give up all your energy that you end up not keeping any for yourself. That's not okay. There's no merit in that. Also, a hard pill to swallow is a lot of people usually can get into the habit of taking from you, not in a malicious way, but just because they're used to you giving so much and them receiving so much. And it's because you let them. Respect yourself enough to set boundaries. It's not okay for you to empty yourself completely for the sake of someone else. You won't be any good to your loved ones or yourself if you're constantly walking around with an empty tank because you have everyone else's needs on your shoulders. Be generous with others, but do not be foolish. Lesson 3, make decisions based on where you want to go and not where you're at right now. In our younger years, we tend to be a little bit more reactionary when it comes to decisions. We are all guilty of making decisions based on how we're feeling at that time. However, the wiser thing to do would be to make less reactionary decisions and instead make informed and thoughtful decisions about where you want to be heading. This goes back to our reaction versus our response mindset that we spoke about in an earlier video. A wise person will envision where they want to go and make the uncomfortable decisions in order to achieve the steps to get there. They don't make choices based on the place they're in right now. Anyone successful that you admire, that you might listen to their podcast or their YouTube or see them on TV, I guarantee you, made choices for themselves, not based on where they were right at the moment of making the decision, but they made the decision for where they want to go. If you spend your life reacting and making decisions for where you are not going to leave from the spot that you're in. You will not grow and you will not evolve and you will certainly not succeed, as you should. Another strand to this tip is never make a permanent decision based on a temporary emotion. We have all been guilty of writing that text, writing that letter, writing that email, sending that DM, calling that person up when we were really upset and full of emotions. I guarantee you that most people who make reactionary decisions like that based on the emotions that they're feeling right now regret it. I have been there. Something that I do that has helped me in the past and still helps me now is if I am feeling upset about something and I need to confront someone, what I'll do is I'll write out in my iPhone notes app. I will write out, get all my emotions out and write out exactly what I want to say to them. And then I delete it. Or I will write something out. I will wait 24 hours until I send it. And maybe the morning after I wrote it, I will read it through and I will really assess if this is something that I want to say, because you cannot take words back. As much as everyone likes to be really loose with their words and, freedom of speech and all that, which is true, we do have freedom of speech, although I don't know what the law is here in England for that. I'm sure there has to be like a freedom of speech thing. Anyway, you wouldn't have thought I've been here for 24 years. I'm still thinking about laws in the US. Anyway, I reread it, and if it's something that I feel like I should send, then I send it, but I wait 24 hours. And that usually helps because I usually will probably take out half of it because it was full of like emotion or rage or anger or that's just something that helps me, and maybe it'll help you in the future if you need it. Tip 4, you do not need an apology to move on. As nice as it is to get an apology, you don't need it. We have all experienced people who have badly hurt us, wronged us, or just made our lives miserable. Sometimes we can actually wait around for years for an apology. That is never going to come. And we end up staying stuck in that very place. We don't allow ourselves to move on because we've not had the I'm sorry. You do not need to stay in that place, no matter what's happened to you. Don't allow the actions of someone else to chain you down and make you feel stuck. The apology you are waiting for is not something you need to validate your feelings or to justify the truth of what's happened to you. The hurt you feel is real and nobody can take that away. Recognize and honor the pain that you are in. That's so important in order for you to be able to move on. Do not sweep it under the carpet because nothing ever good comes from that, and all emotions eventually have to find their way up to the surface. And you do not want to be that type of person that 8 years from now completely blows up while you're trying to buy broccoli at the grocery store. Deal with the hurt head on. Process your emotions properly. And guess what? You do not need someone else's I'm sorry to do that for you. I promise you, I've been there. Many of us have heard the quote that unforgiveness is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Sometimes we can hold off releasing our forgiveness because we actually don't get the apology that we so desperately seek because it validates what's happened to us. Or that's what we think. You don't need someone to say sorry in order to forgive them. I've had some people who have really hurt me in quite serious ways. And I've had to rest in the fact, and they will never truly understand the pain and the hurt that they caused me. But I choose to forgive. Am I saying that it's easy?
Hell no, am I saying it's easy. It is not easy.
But let me tell you a little something about forgiveness. And I want you to listen to this. Forgiveness is a process and it's a choice. It's not a feeling. Many times we don't often feel like forgiving someone. Forgiveness is a process and it is a choice. Forgiveness, for the most part, unless it's for something very, very, very small, is not an instant switch. For the deep, deep hurts that I know some of you have been through, this is an analogy that's actually really helped me deal with situations like that. Forgiveness is like chopping down a massive oak tree. It's swinging that axe day after day, week after week, month after month, and sometimes I've been there year after year. At some point, the tree is going to fall down. Forgiveness is like swinging that axe. It's choosing to swing that axe every day. It's a process of cutting down that big oak tree. It's a process. It's a choice. It's not going to come overnight, and that's okay. In the moments where the last thing that I want to do is forgive, I think about that big tree and I make the choice, and even though I don't feel like it, I still choose to continue chopping down that tree. And sometimes I even have to say it out loud so I can hear it myself. I forgive so-and-so. I forgive you. I forgive blah, blah, blah. Forgiveness sometimes can be the hardest decision, especially when you have been violated, hurt, abused. It can be extremely hard, but you're not doing it for them. You're choosing to forgive for you. You forgive to release yourself. You don't forgive to excuse what's been done to you. And from a Christian point of view, we forgive because God first forgave us. And I always have that also playing in my head as well. Perhaps you actually need to forgive yourself. That can also be sometimes even harder than forgiving someone else. Maybe you made some really bad choices. Maybe you hurt someone that you love. Maybe you betrayed someone. Maybe you possibly hurt yourself and you feel ashamed and you feel guilty. You need to make a choice today to forgive yourself. And then you need to go and make amends with whoever you need to. Things like this can hold you back in life for decades, not just weeks or months or years, decades, if you don't get this right. Lesson number 5, it's okay to be misunderstood. Oof, just saying that, I hate it. But it's true. This is one of my biggest personal fears, is being misunderstood by people. I'm usually really intentional with how I act and the things that I say and how I behave. And sometimes for whatever reason, I can get really misunderstood. And I absolutely hate it. Like I really do. I find this so hard. I was under the wrong impression that it was my job to correct anyone who I felt they misunderstood me. Do you know how exhausting that is? Don't get me wrong. I'm far from perfect, but I take my reputation and my character very seriously. Because honestly, I've worked hard to maintain my integrity, my character. I've had to learn the hard lesson that being misunderstood is just a fact of life. It's going to happen. It's not my job to correct it all, as much as I would like to try. And I think that's why in the last few years, I've stuck around so many toxic personal relationships, because I felt like I had to prove whoever that was wrong. I had to ask myself the questions, and maybe you need to ask yourself these too. Does what they think of you really hold that much value in your life? Maybe it does. Should it hold that much value in your life? Are you being self-aware enough to know if what they're saying or what they're thinking about you is true or not? All questions you can be asking yourself in a situation where you feel like you're being misunderstood. Sometimes people are just going to see you in a certain way and there's nothing you can do to change that. And that's when you really have to learn to let it go. You keep being the kind of person that you know you should be. And if someone thinks of you in a negative way, then just brush it off your shoulder and move on. In the last few years, I've witnessed a lot of people talking about me. Sometimes I've had people DMing others. Honestly, this says more about what's going on in their own life and in their own head and less about who I actually am. Sometimes you gotta let it go and you gotta ask yourself, does this person's opinion really matter to me? Is it easy to let go of something like this? Absolutely not. I still struggle. I find it hard. I find it hurtful. I find it confusing, honestly. And I find myself thinking about it a lot. But then I realize how much I'm holding on to this is allowing them to have more power over my life. I know who I am. I know the kind of heart that I have. I know who I'm trying to be. And with all the self-awareness practice that I'm doing and that I've done, I'm also pretty aware of my own flaws. So when someone speaks poorly of you or misunderstands you, let that motivate you to get to know yourself even more. So you are very, very, very clear of the kind of person you are and the kind of person that you are trying to be. Thank you so much for choosing to hang out with me today, little old me, and I'll see you in the next one.